Hello and welcome to LSU Focus. It is post-match reaction show time after Liverpool have just lost again at home. They've not only broken the record for most consecutive home defeats in the club's history, they're now just seeing how far they can extend it and push it. That's 6 in a row now. I'm not entirely sure what points we're on in the Premier League. I'm not entirely sure what the gap between us and the top 4 is. What I can tell you is it's done. The race of the top 4 from a Liverpool perspective certainly is over completely, and in some ways you almost hope that we just carry on in free fall, because a Europa League campaign or a Europa Conference League campaign, as we could end up getting, is not really what we want next season either. I mean, it's a really difficult defeat to take for so many reasons, and we'll get into a lot of them as this video goes on. But the first one is it's just really hard to quantify where this puts Liverpool, where we're left now. I mean, next season already looks like it's going to have a serious knock-on effect unless Liverpool can somehow pull it out the fire and go and actually win the European Cup to qualify for it next season. It looks almost certain that Liverpool are not going to qualify for Europe's premium competition next season. We've had Jurgen Klopp's quotes about, you know, how that will not affect the players that he wants to sign. I mean, it's a nice idea, but if we're being perfectly honest, certain players will just opt for someone else if Champions League football is on the table there and not here. So it's not looking good from the Champions League front. It does mean we're going to have a knock-on effect next season as well. You know, we've all kind of been willing to write this campaign off a little bit. The whole thing behind closed doors, injuries and everything like that. We can understand that Liverpool's title defence hasn't exactly gone to plan, but the fact that this is now going to bleed into future seasons is becoming a really difficult concept to get our heads around. And like I said, we're going to have to get our heads around it, because we're trying to quantify what this means for Liverpool, and that is the truth, that this is going to have a knock-on effect, and the damage that is being done here will take a while to rectify. It's not going to be a quick fix. It's not like we can go again after the summer and pretend this never happened. This is happening right now, and it's going to continue to have an effect. But before we look into all of that in the future, back to the game that happened today. It was rubbish. It was just so poor, and it's kind of a hard game to analyse, because in many ways it was just a repeat of everything Liverpool have been doing and getting wrong at home over the last few games. It's not like there are different issues that we can delve into. It is just more of the same patterns happening game in, game out. I mean, it's getting worse as well. It's also worth noting that at the start, as I said, after the Chelsea game, where I thought that was a new low as well, we've since gone even lower. But before that, these last 2 matches at home, we've at least had moments where you thought, oh, maybe, you know, we could have scratched something out of that. We did all right in moments. We performed well. We looked threatening. We could have got goals and stuff like that. Now it's just totally abject and without any kind of positives whatsoever. At least after Chelsea, you could say, well, woo, Jota's back. But, you know, he did naff all today, as did every single other Liverpool player going forward. And it's just, from front to back, absolutely awful. And that's really frustrating as well, because while you can forgive defensive errors, because, listen, Nat Phillips and Reece Williams are not your first choice centre-halves, and we all understand the situation there. And yes, that has a knock-on effect elsewhere on the pitch. You know, we can't attack in the same way without Van Dijk and Gomez both playing the ball forward with those wonderful long balls from deep, and also giving other players the security that they can go forward and they're not leaving the defence in the lurch, because you've got world-class players behind you like Van Dijk and Joel Matip and people like that. But even with all of those caveats, the state of the Liverpool attack at the moment is just dire. I mean, the way Fulham just ran the show in the first half, and we looked abject. We didn't have any idea what to do. There was no clear plan. There was no indication of how Liverpool were going to create chances. When we got the ball, we were just kind of going through the motions, and that's what Liverpool have been doing for a while now. There hasn't been an identity to the way we play, and that is a serious issue, because the thing that's made us so good under Jurgen Klopp is a really strong core identity. You know, a way of playing that you can always recognise, no matter who's on the pitch as well. It doesn't have to be the bog standard starting 11. You can switch the players up loads, and it still looks like the same Liverpool side. They still press the same way. The fullbacks are still bombing on and stuff like that. The centre halves are still playing brilliant long balls and things, and the midfielders are dropping into cover for the fullbacks. The whole system works regardless of who is actually involved in implementing it. And that's just completely fallen apart now. This Liverpool team is unrecognisable. It looks a lot more like the teams from earlier on in the last decade, the Roy Hodgson sides, the Kenny Dalglish sides, when that started to all peter out and they just, again, went through the motions, passed the ball around, kind of looked to play football, but not football with any purpose, not football with any design, just a bog standard flat pack factory reset version of the game, which, you know, would be fine if you're playing a League Two side, then your quality just wins out. But in the Premier League, you got to have an idea of how you're going to beat someone. That's what we took to the Sheffield United game. We had a fluid formation, a horses for courses idea. We looked at Sheffield United and thought, this is how we're going to beat them. Against Chelsea and then against Fulham today, I have no idea what the plan was. And listen, maybe there was a clear idea. Maybe Jurgen Klopp and his tactical team had spent ages thinking about how to set up to beat Fulham. But it was not evident today, and that is therefore on the players. And that's the issue. It's hard to really know what's going wrong here. And I think, to be honest, the answer is everything. You know, there's something wrong with the way that the staff are setting the team up. There's something wrong with the way the team are implementing the approach that the staff have given them. And then just at the blunt end of things, in both penalty boxes, everything that can go wrong for Liverpool is going wrong. I mean, a brief word on the goal today, that is absolutely shocking from Mo Salah. The way he just, you know, is so blasé to receive the ball in that kind of position and like try and chest it down, let it bounce. If you want to play and you want to counter attack, and that's why you're not just hoofing the ball away or anything like that, then you got to be quick. You can't counter-attack at that speed. It was sluggish. It was lazy. He was just kind of waiting for something to happen, and that has been symptomatic of a lot of the Liverpool players for a lot of weeks now. But just to allow the ball to bounce and sit there in the middle of the air for that much time without even bothering to check that there is obviously Lamina flying in behind you to take the ball off and slam it into the back of the net, that was so poor from him and symptomatic, as I've said multiple times, of the entire way that Liverpool played today. They just let the game pass them by, and it feels a bit harsh to criticise all the players because, to be honest, you look at people like Nat Phillips and Reece Williams and they did absolutely fine. Nico Williams had a bit of a torrid time on the right hand side, especially in the early stages of the game where that Fulham attack were just ripping him to bits constantly. But the two centre halves were pretty all right, and it's really down, pardon me, sorry, to the players around them that everything went wrong today. The more senior members of the team did not deliver. They are not helping the other players through the game, and it comes back to that thing I spoke about where it doesn't matter what personnel used to change, it always looked like a Liverpool side, and that was partially because you normally had someone in there who could help the other players through it, make them realise what it means to play for this Liverpool side and the standard you should hold yourself to. And it didn't feel like we had that today. The senior players, like Mo Salah, like James Milner as well, and even Andrew Robertson, just weren't offering anything, weren't kind of helping to drag the other lesser players, if we're being perfectly honest, through the game. And that is really worrying because under these circumstances, when players are just going to continue to drop like flies, we have to kind of go forward with that assumption that the injury crisis is going to continue until the season ends, basically. We need people like Salah to be dragging the rest of the players through it, and instead they're making errors as well. They're responsible for the bad results just as much as the kids and the youngsters and the inexperienced are. So, like I said, it's really hard to judge where Liverpool go from here. It's hard to quantify what that defeat means. It's hard to know where we go next. Obviously, we've got Leipzig in midweek. That's terrifying. I know we've got the 2-0 lead, but of course Leipzig are doing well at the moment, flying high in the Bundesliga, and if we take the form that we are in at the moment into that game, then despite the lead, I think we stand little chance of getting through. And I mean, one thing you can say from the game today is there was a lot of rotation on that side, and maybe that's a sign that Jurgen Klopp is starting to prioritise the European matches a little bit more. Listen, if we can go out and at least go deep in the European Cup, at least get to the semis or the final, then it will, you know, put a little bit of balm on this and show that there is at least a bit of Liverpool's core identity left alive that we can take forward into next season and the following years after that. But if we go out of Europe now and we're in the position we're in at the league at the moment, then it's not just curtains for this season, but it could be, you know, a serious decline in the long term for Liverpool as well. Hopefully it isn't. I don't want to end the video on a sad note. I would like to try and find something positive out of that game. There isn't really anything positive out of that game whatsoever. So I'm not even going to try and do that. But what I will say is there's only 3 days until the next game now, and while that's a slightly terrifying prospect, what it does mean is that we as fans can put that defeat behind us now, forget it ever happened, forget about the league campaign, and at least try to get ourselves excited for a Champions League knockout game. But until then, that is all today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for enduring this, I guess is the way of putting this. If you did enjoy the video somehow, then hit the like button down there, hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos I've been out on the channel over the past few days as well. Don't forget to follow at LIVFUL TV on Twitter, and I'll be back soon with the pre-match content for the Leipzig game. Until then, bye for now.